Hey y'all, my name is Travis Lee, and today I have the pleasure of walking through the absolute basics of JobTread. There is a lot in the system, and back several years ago when I started, we couldn't do a lot of what we can do today, right? We couldn't even collect these signatures. There was no schedule. It was a very different product, but over the past couple of years, through conversation and feedback from our customers, we've added a lot. We've added on-screen takeoff, we've added formulas, we've added selections and allowances. We're not talking about any of that stuff today. We're focusing on the core, which is the creation of jobs, tracking their status, and building estimates. I will allude to some of the other project management tools that we have as well, but those are the three things I really want to focus on just to help get you started. So without further ado, let's get in. I just want to mention real quick that these dashboards that you see are totally customizable. By default, we give you an activity feed, the things you're responsible for, and then some information about active jobs, pending customer orders. But then at the top right of the screen, just want to mention that you can create different dashboards for different purposes. Obviously, a business owner is going to focus on different things than a field employee. So you can create different views for different roles. This is allowing you to focus on what data is the most important to you and provide those visualizations of that data over time. So really powerful tool. I highly recommend checking it out, but none of this is really going to become relevant until you start using the system the way it's intended. So let's skip straight into your settings. I just want to mention very quickly, you could start all of this with a web form directly embedded into your website. The look and feel of this is totally customizable, and you can also change the set of questions that you're asking the customer. Every business operates a little bit different, so you can create custom fields to make sure you're tracking the right information. But this is possible for customers and vendors effectively creating your contact list, right? So you have a contact list of all your customers and vendors, each of which you can click into and you can see you have all the notes about them. You have files you can store for them. Great place to store the W-9 and insurance information as well. But I really want to skip to the core of our system, which is the job list. My recommendation is for every single opportunity that hits your desk, that's going to be created as a job. And that can be a mental hurdle for some people, but don't think of jobs as jobs that you've won. You have to create the job to go build the estimate, eventually send it along. Maybe it gets approved, maybe it doesn't. So there's this notion of won jobs and lost jobs, right? Having everything tracked here as a job as well will allow us from a reporting perspective to understand what is our success rate? How many of these jobs are we converting to one project? It'll allow you to create those visualizations that we saw on the dashboard just a moment ago. So again, I recommend creating a job for every single opportunity. The way you do that is you go to plus job in the top right of the screen. This is going to bring up your existing contact list. So if we're doing more work for an existing customer, maybe Ricky Williams here, just click on his name. It's going to bring up his location. That can be changed. Or, of course, you could just create a new customer on the fly. Either one works. Down below, we're going to see a couple of different settings: fixed price versus cost plus versus no customer. Fixed price versus cost plus just depends on your pricing model. If you're a cost plus builder, this will allow us to accurately project profit for you. Because, of course, if you have a $10,000 budget, you overspend on the fixed price job, you're actually losing money, right? But hypothetically, on a cost plus job, you're actually making more. So this allows us to project that more accurately. And then no customer is really designed for situations where it's a spec home, investment property, maybe where you don't really have a customer in play. Down below, all of these questions we see here are custom fields. And custom fields, again, I've alluded to this before, but this is allowing you to customize the set of data that you're tracking for your jobs, for your customers, for your vendors, really allowing us to tailor it to your business. So taking this example here of the sales rep, right? If I start to classify which jobs are from which sales rep or which PM, this will allow me to create reports filtering just for that person, right? So this is really where the customization comes into play. But I'm going to skip over that for a moment, and I'm going to go down to the upload a cover photo option. I'm a big fan of this just because it makes that customer portal look so much prettier. And then to finalize this, I'm going to create the job here at the bottom. This is the job dashboard, and I'm going to break it down for you in just a moment. But before I do, I want to go back for just a second and mention a little bit more about these tables or spreadsheet kind of style view that I see here. The reason this looks this way is because it's completely customizable. And for things like financial information, it's going to provide you the totals at the bottom. So we built it this way because we understand that every business wants different things. And from a reporting perspective, you have to have the ability to customize the data set. So to do that, click on the gear icon at the top left. And here I can change what fields I'm displaying, the order in which they're displayed, and then you can see there's a whole host of other information about these jobs that you can incorporate into the view as well. Also, we can change what we're sorting by and what we're filtering by, and that's, to me, the most powerful thing, right? If I want to see all my jobs created in 2023 assigned to a specific project manager, this is going to give you that ability. And when you make changes, you'll have the ability to save this, and then in the top left of the screen, you never have to reapply those filters. You're just saving a view for potentially just yourself or for the entire company as well. So while we're here in this list, this is actually a really nice segue into the second core thing I wanted to talk about today, which is tracking the job status. You can see here we have this view called Job Pipeline. All new companies do start with a Kanban view. Kanban is a word I like to ask people if they've heard of before. 99% of people have no clue. They say something to the effect of Kanban. What is that? It's a Japanese word. It represents card-based organization. It's just a style of organizing your projects based off the answer choice to a question. And what I mean by that is we've set up a custom field on jobs that is tracking the status. And all of these columns are just the answer choices to that question. So the way this works is all new leads are going to populate this left-hand column, and then it's as simple as dragging them through the process. So it's very, very simple. I think this is something that everyone can understand. So I highly promote the use of a Kanban in tandem with a list like this, which is going to show you all your jobs and maybe top-level financials for those projects as well. I want to mention very quickly how that custom field is set up that makes this possible. Again, you're going to be provided a default version of this if you're a newer company to JobTread, but under settings and custom fields, this is where we set up those fields for our customers, for our vendors, things like the trade, right? I want to track the trade so I can pull up a list of just my electricians, for example. But then down below, you can see we have the job list, and this status right here is what that Kanban is based off of. If you click edit, you can see these are all my answer choices. So the point here is you can fully customize this for your company. Make the answer choices match how your business operates, and then that will create those columns in the Kanban so you can visually understand where all the projects are currently at. So moving back into the job list, I'm going to click on that job that we created together, and let's define these sections. So left-hand side, I see my financial summary, I see my custom fields down below, and then who's involved on the project. Middle of the page here, I see my messaging tool. I can send emails through the system or just record internal notes. And then down below, I have something akin to like a Facebook feed. So everything that happens will just automatically get posted, just creating that historical record over time. Right-hand side, I see the cover photo I uploaded, some quick access to a map to get directions, and then weather down below. Moving on from here, I want to now focus on the third core thing I wanted to discuss today, which is the estimating process. The way this works is we're going to build our estimate here in this blue section off the bat. We'll get to the job costing, price, and profit projections there in just a moment. But the way you build this is by adding individual items or groups. Think of items as electrical, plumbing, HVAC, countertops, individual costs, things that you're spending money on. Ideally, you are not starting from scratch, right? If you have your own template, if you want us to pull in CSI cost codes or the NHB cost codes, or if you just want to pull from one of our templates, we have a global library right here that allows you to have a starting point, right? So if you're a remodeler, if you're a home builder, if you build pools, you can click into that section, you can look at the existing templates we have, and you can pull that in as a starting point. For the sake of the example here, let's do that. Let's just do a basic kitchen remodel, click add. This is going to ask us to map a couple fields. And then this will give us in this template at least 4 groups with a number of items under them. And so for you, you'll want to go in and customize this, right? And there's no template that works perfect for every company. So from here, you can delete items that maybe don't apply. You can insert new items on the fly. And once you're done with this, you're going to be saving this to the catalog as a future template that you can easily draw into a new job. But let's work with this example for now with this template. So you can see here, if I save, we have, again, 4 overall groups. Think of these groups as like organizational components. If you have hundreds of items, break them up, make them into smaller digestible components. It just helps organize things a bit. If I expand everything now, I can see all the details, right? The description field that we see is the scope of work. So write an essay, write everything you're doing for the customer. If you need to expand and give yourself more room, you certainly can. Obviously, this increases the height here, but we can expand and collapse that column, or excuse me, that row as well, just to kind of keep things nice and tight. This description field does transfer onto the proposal. So think of this as a one-stop shop. I have my items, I have my scope of work, and I have my cost and price as well. Moving on from there, you have a quantity and unit for every item. This is optional. If you are primarily working with subs, you just want to put lump sum costs, perfectly fine. So for design, I could say it's going to cost our company $5,000. Price to the customer is going to be $71.42. That's populating based off a 30% profit margin. So quick step back, talk about philosophy for just a moment. JobTread is very much a cost-focused system, meaning if you get your costs accurate, we're going to tell you what to charge the customer based off your goal profit margin as a company. You can always override this. If you want to change this number to 7,500, for example, you certainly can, but it's giving you that starting point, telling you, hey, if you're trying to hit 30% profit, you need to charge 71.42 in this particular example. You can select quantities and units if you want. So for something like hardwood flooring, I always paid the same. So let's say it's a house with 2,500 square feet of hardwood flooring and I paid $650. That price has gone up over time, but that's going to populate a total cost to my company of $16,250. Price to the customer in this case is just over $23. So with this template, no costs were stored ahead of time. Everything kind of just came through as blank, right? But in your version of this and what you save in the catalog, if you know your costs ahead of time, save them in the catalog that we brought into the job. And the beautiful thing about that is you just change the quantity and then you're off to the races. You're done at that point. For the sake of the example, I'm not going to bore you with going through every single one of these items and plugging in the cost. I'm just going to select everything and utilize one of our mass actions. So this is a really, really slick tool. Once you get comfortable with the budget, it's going to save you a ton of time. Here, I'm just going to set everything to $500 just to give myself some numbers. Everything turns yellow when there's a change. Nothing is saved yet though, so we can lock this in by saving in the top right. There's some other really cool mass actions here I want to highlight. Of course, you're thinking, 30% profit margin. Maybe if you're $1 million home builder, that's an unrealistic number. Maybe if you're a electrician, you're like, I need to make more than that. You can change the default in your main settings, but you can also change it job over job. So if I select an action here, I'm going to change my margin in this case to, let's say, 40%. Click apply. And this now is sitting at a $2 million job because I have 2,500 square feet at 500 a piece. Let me adjust that number. Let's just do 5 per square foot. This is going to be a little bit more realistic, right? I'm just south of $50,000. I'm going to make $20,000 on the job. Maybe this 88 cents really bothers you. Maybe you really, really want that to be a perfect round number. We have another really common mass action here called setting the total price. Here you can just say, hey, 50 flat. Actually, let's go 52 flat. Let's add a little padding there. Click apply. That will just proportionally distribute the profit across the items to get you to that bottom line number. Really helpful for, again, achieving a round number, or if you're working with insurance and trying to match a number, that's a really helpful tool for that also. So I'm going to save my changes here. Let's say I'm pretty happy with it. At this point, you can go and send this off in the form of a proposal to the customer, but there are so many more features within this budget. I feel like I have to mention just a few of them very quickly. So one thing I love more than just about anything is the ability to present options for the customer. So add a new group. I'm going to pull in an existing template for countertops. Good, better, best sort of situation. We have 150 square feet we need to decide, and each has a different price point, right? The reason you see a price range now is because we're providing options, right? You could do this by clicking on the group, clicking on those 3 dots, say show details, and now I've turned on where it says allow selections. 2 main uses for this. One is pick one of these options I'm presenting to you. That's what we're doing right here, where the minimum is 1 and the maximum is 1. We could also change the minimum to 0. That's fantastic for upgrades, right? Here's the base package. I can build it for this, but you can drive up the price of the project. Let them be the bad guy. Let them drive it up, but you can provide the cheaper option if they want to go that route, if they want to fit it within their budget. So that's a really, really nice feature. I'll show you how that looks on a proposal in just a moment. Another thing I wanted to mention, though, is that each one of the items that you create has attributes behind the scenes. So each one of these items is going to be tied to a cost code. So if you are the type of builder that builds your estimates with cost codes, the item name and the cost code behind the scenes are just going to be one and the same. We allow you to get more detailed though if you want. So for example, if you want to put in lumber takeoff in JobTread, you can. 2x4x8, 2x4x10, 2x4x12. All of those individual items, though, would be tied to the same cost code called framing material or something to that effect. So these backend accounting codes are important because this is also what hooks up to QuickBooks, products and services. So just keep that in mind. And then also the cost type, very important. Things like labor, materials, subcontractor costs, just organizing those into big buckets. So for example, if you wanted to filter your budget just for your materials and then print that off as a PDF, just know that's going to be an option as well. So that's the second thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned. The third thing is here under the gear icon. Really cool thing about this is, let's say you're a cost plus builder and you really talk in terms of markup, not profit margin. You can turn off the margin column and turn on the markup column. So now you're talking more language that you're used to. Additionally, there are other fields, other data points, financial data points that we have available to you. They're just not turned on by default. So just know there's more information here. And then down at the very bottom, you actually see custom fields too. So you can actually set up custom fields on your items. Best example is like internal notes, right? If you want to have a place where you can log internal notes, things that don't transfer over to the proposal, just create the custom field, turn it on, move it to the appropriate location in the budget, and then you're going to have everything in one place, feeling and looking the way that you really want. All right, one last thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned before we skip over to the presentation to the customer is going to be formulas. And this is absolutely a more advanced topic. We have full trainings dedicated to this, but it's so cool. I just want to make sure I talked about it for just a moment and show you what's possible as something to think about in the future. Certainly not something you need to implement on day one, but again, just know that this is there and it's possible. I'm going to focus on this quantity formula column. And when you do this, you're kind of opting to determine the quantity through a formula instead of just manually typing it in. So I'm going to give you a super rudimentary example. Let's just do gallons of paint. So the unit here in this case is going to be gallons, and the quantity formula is where I'd plug in my formula. And so my recommendation to you is think about how you would calculate this in real life. And so for something like interior paint, maybe I just take the linear feet of wall, multiply it by the height of the wall, divided by the amount of paint a gallon will cover, so the paint coverage. So I'm really just typing in words, right? This is like the real life calculation of how I'd figure out how many gallons. From here, though, you just need to tell JobTread it's a parameter by wrapping those words with curly brackets. So I'll do that real quick. And when you're done, you have effectively created 3 parameters on the job. You can see this red dot popping up here. If I click it, now I see those words, those terms I typed in as parameters on the project. I think in parameters as measurements, that's generally what they're going to be. And so any estimator can now walk the job, type in the details, let's say, 350 square feet per gallon, click save, and that can automatically spit out how many gallons I'm going to need for this job. Obviously, if you're working with something like tile or siding, there's going to be a waste factor. So maybe you take that calculation and you multiply it by 1.2 for 20% waste. That's going to give me now 51 gallons of paint. In my case, I'm never purchasing 0.42 gallons. It's not really possible. So from here, you can wrap it with a ceiling function. And you can see there's all these different functions and things we can reference. There's your math operators. I'm just going to wrap it with a CEIL function. And now that's going to round up to 52 gallons just to give me the proper amount I'm actually going to be purchasing. So don't mean to overwhelm you with that. Just want to show you what's possible here. If you bake these formulas into your catalog template, all you will do is pull the template into the job. The parameter list will populate itself, and the estimator can just plug in those parameters. It can spit out the quantities automatically, and you can technically build estimates in less than a couple of minutes. The last thing that I'll mention is that this parameter list can be populated from other sources. So we have integrations with Eagle View, with Hover. If you integrate those, that can actually populate this parameter list automatically, and your line items can read from those. Additionally, if you want to use our on-screen takeoff, which is under the plans tab, you can do all of your drawings over there. And this parameter list is shared with that plans tab. So if you click over, you'll see all of those same parameters are going to be in this list. This effectively is going to allow you to draw on your plans and get those measurements. And again, your budget can read from it. So it's all interconnected, but that parameter feature allows you to not manually type in quantities, but pull them from the job measurements. All right, moving on from here, I mentioned I would get to the presentation to the customer. When you click that plus document button in the top right of the screen, you're going to be presented with 5 different document options. Bid requests are really, really slick. I'm a big fan of this. This allows you to send the plans off to a sub. They can actually input a number. JobTread doesn't require them to create a login, so they can just click on the link in the email. They'll see the plans, they can put in their number, and you're off to the races. So that will help inform your cost. I'm a big fan of that. Custom orders. This is anytime you're getting a contract signed by the customer, anytime you're trying to obtain a signature. The reason why you see so many different templates are for different real-life purposes. If you want a commercial contract versus a residential contract, create 2 different templates and you can use them accordingly. Customer invoices, same idea. That's pretty straightforward. Vendor orders are going to be your subcontractor agreements, purchase orders, work orders, and then your vendor bills. That's going to be your actual costs, like when you're spending money, so you can track your budget versus actuals. Before I show you what the proposal looks like, I want to briefly mention in your settings, under document templates, this is where you see that exact same list. And I can go in here, create new templates as needed, or I can modify existing ones. I'm going to look at the proposal here. I'm going to focus on this for a moment. You have a couple sections where you can input your text. So in this details section up top, this is going to appear on the right-hand side. In the footer, that's generally where we're seeing people set up their terms and conditions. So it's a simple copy and paste, and then you can use the formatting tools to make it look pretty and feel right. Also want to mention that you have the ability to set up a cover page. I'm a big fan of this. Let this help sell you the job. Make it very pretty, make it fun. So under the cover page option, we have 4 different templates. I really like the modern version. I think this looks the nicest. If you go this route, I would advise removing as much text as possible. Really focus on the imagery. When I get into the job, I'm going to show you I can actually use the cover photo for the job, so it's custom per project, but you can have a stock image just like the one we see here. Additionally, you can input additional PDF pages if you want to have like something that walks through your process and how your company operates. It's a really nice way, again, to create like a presentation to the customer. Up top, I'll mention that we have the option to set up a payment schedule too. So if you want the acceptance of the proposal to generate invoices that may be sent at a later date, that's a really nice way to have the system automatically calculate those amounts for you. So if I go back into the job and I click plus document, proposal, this is going to ask me what I want to include in the proposal. Generally speaking, you're going to include everything and you're going to click create. That's more applicable for like change orders when you want to say, hey, we're changing specific line items. But the items and groups back in my budget have been transferred over into this proposal. I want to make a point that the level of specificity that you get into in your estimate does not need to match the proposal. And so I can go through here, I can hide all line items under groups. I could even hide a line item pricing under groups, but still show the items themselves. Or you could just hide everything under your top level groups. There's a lot of customization. And the beautiful thing is that this can change contract over contract. Different customers have different needs. So this gives you that flexibility. One really cool thing is, again, that selections option. We just threw countertops in here. This one did have pictures attached to it as well. So the customer can effectively see what they're purchasing. So again, this is the gamification of it. This is what the customer will end up choosing when they sign that proposal. Down below, terms and conditions, if you need to modify anything, just click into it. You can make those changes. And let's say everything looks pretty good. I'm going to save and I'm going to send it off to the customer for approval. When you do this, you could include a husband-wife combo. You can have multiple signatures if you want. You can modify the email text. When you click send, that's going to send the email. You'll be able to verify this was delivered successfully. And now you just wait. Most people are wondering, what's the customer going to see? And so I'll pull it up. Customer is going to receive an email that looks something like this. It's going to have your logo, your colors, of course, your email text. All the customer does, and this is the same for a vendor clicking on the big request. They click on the link in the email and automatically they're going to be thrown into it, and they'll be able to see all the details that you made visible to them on that proposal. So again, for the customer, they can pick and choose what they want. Maybe they want to go with granite. They could see this is $61,000 at this point. I'm a little bit more bougie though. I want something more expensive, so they can kind of drive up the price and see what that would cost them. And a lot of times you'll find that they do want those more expensive options. They want those upgrades. So now they're sitting at a $70,000 project. And if you scroll down for the customer, very simple. They just sign, approve. And on your side of things, this is going to show up as approved immediately. You're going to be notified via email, and you'll have a copy of their signature with a timestamp too. So effectively, you've won the job. You've got it at this point. So I'm going to skip back to the dashboard. Now you've set the price of the project back in the budget. I can see my budgeted cost for all my major groups and every individual line item. This is where I'm going to start tracking my costs, and this is where I'm going to see my profit projections as well. So as you enter actuals into the system, the beautiful thing is it's going to be doing automatic job costing. And this is such a big part of JobTread, but I'm going to save further explanation of kind of the job costing and profitability for future videos and other videos, just so we can again focus on the core. But I did want to show you, obviously you get the job. Next thing you're going to think about is sending that first invoice. This can be automated through the payment schedule feature, or you can just go send an invoice. You could invoice for specific line items and specific dollar amounts. A lot of people, though, just want to do a percentage towards the total price. Just know when you send invoices, it's always going to default to the remaining balance, and you can take more or less depending on your real life situation. Right, y'all, we've reached the point where at the first training, I'm kind of wrapping up. And the most important things in the system to me are creating a job, tracking a status, and setting estimates. And that's what we've covered so far. When you get to the point where you've built that first job and you're really happy with the structure and it's something that you want to save for a future project, just know you can go right here in the top right and you can export this to the catalog. That will save this to the catalog so you can use it in the future. You would just click plus group, bring in the template, and that's a great starting point for that next job. So where do you go from here? I think my advice is to become an expert of what we just discussed and then start to think about implementing some of the other tools. I'm going to just very briefly mention what's possible within the schedule and then some of the field components. So let's skip over to the schedule real quick. This is a full Gantt chart system, so highly recommend checking out the template library. I'm going to just go pull in our remodeling kitchen template. When you do, it's going to ask you for the start date. So let's say today, and then this will give me that Gantt chart that you're probably used to seeing, where if one thing's taking longer than expected, the beautiful thing about the Gantt chart is that it makes everything behind it move back. You're not having to individually update those two. Every one of these tasks can also be assigned to a person. You can set a task type to give it some color and have it visually pop. And then all of these assignments and all these task types are going to be visible under the main schedule tab along the left-hand side, which you can think of as a full company calendar. That's where you can set up custom views for different people and crews and things like that. Moving on from there, I want to show you though what's possible on your phone. A huge component of this is being at the job site. Hopefully, we're not just sitting behind a computer running all these jobs. We actually have to go and do things, right? And so JobTread is going to be available on your phone too. So you get JobTread on your phone. I'm actually just going to pull up my phone right now and kind of walk you through some of the features. First things first, anyone that's going to be going to the job site should get JobTread saved on their phone. So once you do, you'll have a tile like any other app. You click on it, and then that will bring up the mobile version of JobTread. From there, you click on the job in question. You can see all the project details. I'm actually clocked into the job already. You can see that in the top left. But if you click on that clipboard in the top right, that's the creation of a daily log. So daily log is daily updates at the job site that can be used internally or shared with the customer. Here, I clearly have screwed up. I tried to paint the garage door. I did that. I also painted the concrete. That's actually a real life thing that I did. Here's a picture of it. And just to show my concern to the company owner, I want them to see my face, and I'm really upset about it too. So I'm going to upload that picture with my daily log, and that's going to record the daily log on JobTread. And immediately that's going to be posted to the daily logs tab, and then those files are going to filter into the files section of the project as well. I'm a huge fan of this tool. The reason why, it's simple, right? And anyone can do it, and it's providing daily updates that, again, can be a historical log for just yourself, or it can be shared with the customer. I'm a huge fan of sharing it with the customer. Show them that you're working on the job, even on the days where it's not obvious to them. I think it's a much more professional experience, and they'll start to rely on those daily updates in the portal versus just shooting you a text, trying to figure out what's going on. So, big fan. I made this point a moment ago, but just to show you real quick, in that files tab of the job, by uploading those files to the daily log, those do filter into the file section. You can folder these files. You can tag them. This also should include videos of the project, permits, plans, PDFs. Any files pertaining to the project can live here. And really nice thing is along the left-hand side, you have the main files tab, which will show you all of your files across all of your jobs. So at this point, we're about 30 minutes in. I'm sure you're tired of seeing my face and listening to me. So we're going to wrap it up. There is more to show you here. There's the specifications tab, which allows you to generate a QR code that you can post at the job site. So any vendor or internal employee can scan it and see some of the job specifications. There's also selections allowances. There's more conversations to have here with your CSM, more videos to watch in our help desk, and that's kind of where I'll move to next. So in the help desk in the bottom left, this is your team of people that are ready to help you. You have your customer success manager in the top right. This is someone that comes from construction. They have experience in the field, and they're going to be your advisor moving forward. Also, our support team is great for quick questions. They're also in-house here in Dallas, Texas. They know JobTread like the back of their hand as well. So if you have quick questions that come up, give them a ring, send them an email, and they can help you out. But also, our training resources are vast. We do everyday live trainings. We also have all of these recorded. So if you can't make the live trainings, this is a great option as well. So any questions you have, feel free to reach out to our team. We're here for you. We are an extension of your company. That's the way we view ourselves. But at the end of the day, our goal here is to make the system work for you and to be the backbone of your business. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for your time. Have a great day.